and welcome to episode 2 of our Reader and Author podcast. And today we are looking at the Bonkbusters, i.e. your spicy novels. And Danny has chosen the novels for today. What are we reading?
We're reading Mile High and Jilly Cooper's Rivals as two comparisons from one nearly 40 years ago and one from today from BookTok, which is really popular, and it's kind of not fair, I think, on the Mile High to compare it to an OG like Jilly Cooper.
They're very different types of books.
Really different.
But
they
both
both
equally
have
popular.
and like you say, the spicy, sexy element to it and the raunchy.
And it's really funny because I actually have an original copy of Rivals, which was my mum's and was published in 1988.
I love it.
And it's mad that it's now like a TV series.
Yeah, and I love the fact that that is battered and well read.
And how did you read Mile High?
I read it on my Kindle.
So
I think this is just another...
sums up the difference in our reading styles nowadays.
Definitely.
But I still think there's a place for the old paperback, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had never read a Jilly Cooper before. I'd seen it on a bookshelf at home. When I was a small child, I remember seeing the back of like a bottom, like a Jodhpurs.
Yeah.
So that's
it's always
the prequel
quite
to this, isn't it?
Yeah,
Riders.
Riders was a really big
So I remember
novel.
seeing Riders on my mum's bookshelf and seeing the cover of that because they're really iconic. But I'd never read them. And then you had suggested, we came up with this idea to compare the two books from different eras. And I had no idea that Jilly Cooper's books are so huge.
They're huge. They're complex and there's so many people in them. The cast is vast.
It's just massive in comparison to the BookTok, which I think there's a place for that today, but there's a reason why I guess that whole market has flooded because it's about volume.
So when you picked up or look at Arrivals, you know it's going to be
a
naughty book.
It's thick. It's like half the size of my face.
But even the image says this is going to be a bonkbuster. What do you think is about books like Mile High now that make you realise it's going to be a spicy novel? Is it all about the reviews that make people choose a book?
I think that it's the reviews, and I think the social media, and that's basically where this has come from. There's been, I suppose, when did it have a renaissance? When did it come back?
What, the sort of the romantic, the spicy novels? I think it's a post-COVID thing for me. I think, maybe even 50 Shades of Grey.
I was just about to say 50 Shades. So I think the Mile High has basically, and those BookToks have come in to that gap, like you say, like from post-COVID, post 50 Shades, and they're just huge. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
And they're short, they're really fast-paced.
How long did it take you to read Mile High?
Probably, if I didn't have any interruptions, probably a couple of hours.
And how long did it take you to read Rivals?
It took days. It just took days. I was like, why am I reading about the village? And
I like all that though.
Yeah, I know, but the village is a character in itself.
It is. Yes, that's totally it. It's a whole world building.
Yes.
And do you think you read these books for the world or for the relationships?
I think for me, I read these books for the relationships.
The sex relationships or the love stories?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think
be honest,
you
do want a little bit of
smutty,
easy bits.
Smutty, spicy bit, and oh wow, never would have done it like that, or definitely not part of the Mile High Club. Yeah. So you do have that, and it is funny sometimes because it is so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you?
I probably one of the reasons I love Rivals, and I actually read this when I was 16. And if you speak to my family, every one of my sisters, I've got 2 other sisters, have read this. I probably read this 5 times.
Really?
Yeah. And I read it not for the smarts. Though obviously it's not the same level as it is now in modern day terms. But it was quite raunchy at its time.
Yeah.
But it was more, I loved all the idea of the village and the 2 rival TV franchises and which they brought up really well in the TV series, and it was very much the world for me. I mean, from a writing perspective, this one is like, it is very well written, but how she keeps all the threads together with all the different subplots and secondary stories, and you have like the journalist in the very start who BT Johnson has a relationship with, and you kind of forget about her, and then she suddenly comes in to completely stab him in the back at the end, and how Jilly Cooper managed to keep on hold of, and this cast gets bigger and bigger with each book. I mean, by the end of her 15th story,
Billy and Janie's story,
there's hundreds of people in this world, and that is it's a world. It's a massive world. While Mile High is very much for the two main characters.
Yeah, it's the two main characters, and it's very small, and I think that's what you can almost tell that it's written at speed. Perhaps I don't know. What's your perspective on that?
It's mass market. So the thing about content nowadays, and it's really hard as writers, you want to get 2 or 3 books out a year to meet up with the demand of an audience who can read content or consume content at a rate of knots. While I wouldn't want to guess how long Rivals took Jilly Cooper, but it wouldn't have been a quick write for her. It would have been a year, 2 years to put together. While Mile High book, the author's under pressure to constantly put out the latest, greatest, sauciest novel to keep up with the demand, or they go and find another book to read or another author to follow. So they have to keep it linear. They have to keep it to one plot line in order to get that book on the shelves. So it's a different market.
Absolutely. And I would say credit to the author of...
Remind me of the author's name, actually.
Yeah, it's Liz. We're both like, what is her name? We're going to link her as well, obviously.
Yeah. Do you know, it's Liz Tomford. I knew it sounded like a perfume or a famous fashion writer.
So in comparison to, like you say, about Jilly Cooper's, like the size of the book, how she's created a world, Liz Tomford, the author of Mile High, this is the book number 1 in that series.
Yes, you've read more, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've read them all because it was so quick and easy to read them. But so she has, I think, 5 books, and she has taken, so the characters that you briefly meet in the first book, she's done a spin-off story for each one.
So that is similar to Jilly Cooper then. She does build a world for everybody.
But she kind of just touches and introduces them in the first book, and then she's done a spin-off story, whereas Jilly's incorporated them in one book, one whole situation, and then does the odd thing with each of the characters and their relationships. And she goes quite deep into the troubled relationships, you know, Maud and
Declan
O'Hara. Their relationship's really complex.
I love their relationship because that's the one thing I'd say about, well, no, we're spinning off here a bit, but realism, I would love it if you know, a sexy hockey player picked up and had a serious relationship with an air hostess. And I love that she builds quite a realistic world there, but it's not hugely realistic. It's like 50 Shades of Grey when the student meets the billionaire. These things just don't happen. While Maud and Declan O'Hara's relationship, which is a proper marriage, which has had children, which has had affairs and come back together, and they're both really difficult, passionate characters. I think that for me is better realised than something that is completely unrealistic.
And that's, I was going to say, and that's the point that, like, we've noted here, is like reality and fantasy, and what draws us to these books as well, and or what keeps us reading when, you know, it is complete fantasy that, you know, an air stewardess, maybe not, but a billionaire, millionaire, a hockey player who's of course going to win the final game. Spoilers, sorry.
I think you probably would have guessed that they would win.
He's going to win, but there isn't much grit, I suppose. There's a little bit, and they try.
There's not the same level of tension.
Absolutely, and the grit and the dirt. You know, the house, just the home that Maud and Declan share, is filthy.
Yeah, and their children are
like
almost
Cinderella.
Their children are almost sort of certainly Caitlin is like
feral.
Complete. Yeah, she's rebellious. The oldest son is pretty much just doesn't come home because his parents are away with the fairies, and I think that world building is far more realistic.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It takes years to build that kind of story.
Yes.
While do readers want that anymore? Do they just want instant gratification?
I think that there is a place for both, and I think that you can find both. It's really accessible. If you want to go for your, I picked that up because we were doing this, and also because it's super quick. It's an escapism. It's okay. I know it's going to take me hours rather than days to read, and okay, that entertained me.
Escapism is a really good point. I mean, do you think it's escapist because it would never happen in real life, or which is more probably male high, or do you think that escapism is when you get pulled into a different world, and it's like for example, the fact that Rivals is now popular 40 years on, is that because people are escaping into the 80s, where we all think that maybe the 80s were a better time than we are currently living in? Or is it both? I don't know.
I think that Jilly Cooper, she has, we're bigging her up because I don't know how you not big her up.
And also we lost Dave and Jilly Cooper last year, so this is sort of an honour to her, really.
Yeah, but she created a world, and therefore that escapism, you can just run with it, and the imagination that she had to create that is just. I'm just imagining her study and the mind maps and
all the bits that would have been on the wall, and the cutouts
like
from
a string
Polo
to try and tie everything together.
And her knowledge of the horse world, like from flat racing to jumps to polo to everything. She was consummate horsewoman. It's fascinating. I think the 80s are why Rivals are so popular now, and why everyone's waiting for the new series to come out next month, is that we all recognise the puff sleeves and the giant phones and the yuppieism of the 80s, and that's a real form of escapism when we're in a world which at the moment is pretty fraught with tension and not in a good way.
Yeah, and the big boom of the 80s, people went out and got it. It was, dare I say, Maggie Thatcher kind of put that into the economy. It was like, go out there, earn it for yourself, do well, and this whole kind of world that Jilly Cooper has created is excessive in something.
It's brilliantly excessive,
yeah, isn't it? But it's also got the reality in it, with the flawed relationships and the character's flaws. She's not afraid to highlight the character has flaws.
Major flaws.
Yeah, major flaws. And I think with like the characters, she's it's quite difficult reading it now with today's eyes and perspective, because I'm like, oh, that's a bit cringe. Like you don't talk to somebody like that anymore. You wouldn't critique somebody's appearance, or if they're a bit overweight, say, or something like that.
Beauty is defined by a certain aesthetic in these books, which is nice about Mile High, is that beauty is defined completely differently.
Absolutely.
And you made an interesting point before we went on the podcast about the difference between the power struggle between male and women in Rivals, which is more subtle, and Mile High, where there's far more quality. So do you want to kind of dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the sexual equality of things is one of the major themes in Mile High as well. I made a comment to you when you said, "Oh, I'm downloading the book," and I said, "Oh, one of the first main differences is that women always get to come first and orgasm first."
I was like, "Oh, right, well, that's definitely a reason to read."
But it's but I think that's a sign of the times, in that there is that equality now. The
woman's orgasm's not really. Well, it is talked about, but it's not. There's not that first point of view.
Yeah, and it's a conquest for the man in Rivals. To wow, he's bedded that beautiful young girl, and he's got his end away. Isn't that great? Whereas in Mile High, it's a bit more slow and subtle. The woman has some body insecurities, but she's praised and worshipped, and
because you get Stevie's point of view from her, so it's written in first person as opposed to third person, which Rivals is in. You experience her sexual gratification.
Yes,
and I think that's what's a really popular now with women now.
Absolutely.
They want to read that. They want to feel it and then see a woman taking power and position in the bedroom, not just be a toy or a means to an end. Yeah.
Any question for the author?
Okay, I'll try my best.
Yes. Do you think that readers today still buy into that 80s class-driven fantasy?
Do you know what? Ironically, I think 10 years ago, no. And I think post-COVID, there's this need for nostalgia. And I feel that even music has gone back to the 90s, fashion has gone very 90s. I think fiction going back to the 80s is not that surprising anymore, because I think Jilly Cooper was the 80s. That she managed to symbolize everything about the class culture at the time, with her descriptions of power, of wealth, of flashiness, of how overt people were in that time. She managed to describe it really well. So I think that if you're going to go back and be nostalgic about the 80s, Jilly Cooper was your absolute go-to. And the reason that people enjoy it so much is that it's a world that we still recognize. It's not the 40s or the 50s. And some of the problems that people have in the 80s are with politics, do I say, economic divide between those that have and those that have not, is even greater now than it was in the 80s. And I think back then it was all new and fresh, and we all had a hope for this amazing world. Well, you and I didn't, because we were babies, but
of course, so young.
Our parents did.
Barely born.
And then 40 years on, we're not any much further than we were then. And actually that time in history seemed better in a way than it is currently now. So I think there's going to be a lot of desire for these stories that reflect a different time when there was more opportunity and hope for the future. And I think even 20-year-olds now will want to watch Rivals, even though they weren't even born. Their parents might have only just been born, because it reflects the political and economic microcosm we're in. So
very good.
I know. I tried, I think.
Okay, so is writing contemporary power, fame, celebrity, and all that harder than writing traditional class systems?
I would say it's easier. I would say writing class systems now is very difficult unless you took from a place of experience. So for a lot of writers that write from places culturally different to ours, how they experience depression from a class system, they can write better to it than, say, someone like myself, who has the privilege of living in a very stable life for the last 30, 40 years. So if I was to write about class systems for how people lived in sort of North Wales comparative and the mining community, that wouldn't be an honest book, because I don't come from that experience. That has to be written by someone who can lend an authentic voice. And writers have recognised now that you can't just piggyback other people's stories for yourself. You have to talk authentically, which ironically Jilly Cooper does very well, because she's writing about a class system that she knew, and the elitism that was there was something that she had obviously socially observed. She was a very keen observer of how the middle class or the upper class were pushing down this emerging middle class that suddenly had all this money. They didn't like them, but they needed their money, and how politics was always very much the upper class, and then was starting to become more unseated by the working class, who was suddenly coming up and having a voice. So that was a really, really well done. Writing the power struggle now in something like Mile High is easier, because they've done it through the lens of fame. So power now lies in the Kardashians and the Instagram holders and who's got the most followers, and it's not who you're born to or what's the letters at the end of your name, or even if you're a politician like Rupert was. That's what power was then, but now it's how many millions of followers will like my post. So you can write about power and better in something like Mile High, because just because this guy is good at Z is good at hockey and has money, he's now officially powerful. It doesn't really matter. Or we know his background is not great, but he holds that power. And then you can then play with that. And that's what she does so well in the Mile High book, is she takes all the things that we think we want, money, power, fame, bad boy reputation, and it becomes his antagonist. It becomes the enemy to him. having happiness. So much easier to write power and class that way than it is to do it in traditional forms where you shouldn't really write about it unless you can write about it from a place
life
of experience.
Yeah. Otherwise it feels a little bit like appropriation, and
absolutely, and disingenuous.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful not to steal other people's voices.
Yes.
But Jilly doesn't do that, because this is totally and utterly, she owned this. This was her world.
I was going to say, and
to life.
you know, that whole contemporary power struggle, it's that also reality and, you know, the realism and fantasy. And so yes, you can write about things that you don't necessarily know if it's almost a complete fantasy
and a
fantasy world.
And to flip what I said earlier on its head a little bit, I said that it wasn't very realistic, but actually we do live in a society now where you can suddenly become famous for setting up a YouTube video and doing silly things. Next thing you know, everyone knows your name. So stranger things have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, two friends for 20 years all of a sudden starts doing a podcast, you know,
and think that they can like talk comfortably about all these things.
Pros. There we are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions you want to
fire
my way?
All right then. How has the way you'd write a bad boy changed compared to somebody like Rupert Campbell Black?
Oh, okay, right. This is a good one. So Rupert Campbell Black is probably one of the best bad boys of that genre, because he was actually a really bad boy. Like, she writes him honestly. He does do things that are actually quite despicable. He does treat women quite badly. If you read the prequel Riders, there's with the horses where he beats up on a horse for not doing what he wants, and again, gritty realism, because that actually does happen in the field of sport, but it doesn't make him very likable.
No.
But where people love Rupert is that he has these redeemable qualities, and then he will suddenly he realized the error of his ways when he couldn't have what he wanted, a bit like Z in Mile High, but it's far more fundamentally written, because he has to completely change who he is and his reputation in order to not only have the woman that he loves, but actually to win the franchise, which is, he's put a lot of people's names at stake. So I think that was the blueprint for the bad boy. Now
I think that's the bad boy come good. You know, the rival, obviously,
Baddington, Tony Baddington.
Yes, Tony Baddington. So he also can link back to your class. You know how he came from nothing. Just to hark back to that, because that popped in my head.
And they used to be mocked because his daddy was called Lord Pop Pop, because he made guns, and that's how he made his money. Yeah.
And he got his title. His father got the title. It wasn't a generation of hundreds of years ago.
It wasn't landed.
And that was mocked. And so for his new title and things like that. And Tony had a real chip on his shoulder about status and
he wasn't
power.
Really, I mean, he was the bad guy, but his curve was more the Macbeth curve. So he could have gone one way, and he went the bad way. He turned sour. Rupert started off pretty like not likable, and then becomes likable through his actions.
Yes.
With modern day heroes or bad guys turn good, how a lot of authors write them is through internal point of view. So when you're hearing his thoughts, you know, because you're in his avatar, that he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
So it's easier to do that, because you know, from the start with Mile High, he says something on the lines of, "This is not who I really am."
Absolutely. Well, she spelled it out.
Possibly too much. There's a lot of tell not show.
Yeah.
Which is why it's easier to read, but B, you kind of don't have to do any work with it, because you kind of know, because they're telling you the whole time.
She hasn't really probably done very much foundation work, whereas Jilly had, in the why and how did Z get that original persona.
Yeah.
So obviously there would be an element of truth in that persona if we had like a backstory to, you know, he was a bit of a bad boy, and then the press got hold of it, and then they loved that persona, and they loved him playing that rival with his teammates and things like that.
So to flip it on its head, as a reader, if you compare Taggy and Stevie, you know, how would you compare them? Because they are both the love interest. They're both the catalyst for change in our two bad boys, but they're quite different people and different worlds and different scenarios. So, you know, who did you prefer?
Who do I prefer? It's really difficult, because you naturally warm to Taggy.
Taggy.
I
Yeah.
know I was saying Taggy. Yeah, you naturally warm to her because she is this kind of quiet mouse like creature in the corner. She's beautiful, but she has learning difficulties and dyslexia.
I like
which is
that.
really
Yeah.
interesting that Jilly wrote about that 38 years ago.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, they kind of mock her, or they
when
put her
she
down
can't
for
spell
it.
the French right.
She asked somebody to help her write
and
out
they
the
mess
menu,
her up. Yeah.
and they put something completely ridiculous on the menu in French, and she doesn't know, and it takes her a long time to read menus. So you warm to her because she's already at a disadvantage to everybody else around her.
Do you think there's more of a journey in her for her than there is for Stevie?
Yeah, she has, absolutely. I think she has to create her own independence and strength away from her family because they constantly take from her. So I think she does grow, and she grows being part of the consortium and trying to go around the country, getting lost in the car and things like that, reading a map.
I like it when she records her directions
on
a tape recorder, and then when he breaks down and has to get in her car, the whole time you can hear her voice. I think that's just a really nice personality
you
moment.
naturally warm to Taggy, I think, a lot easier. But I think that's maybe a reflection of me, whereas Stevie's more...
She's more independent.
She's already got that built-in strength, and I think that maybe that difference is because of the 38-year gap between when it was written.
Women are just different.
Women are built stronger. We're more independent. We're not afraid to say no. We have this inner strength that will say, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to go on a date with you. My career is far more important. Or if I am, it'll be on my terms.
I feel there was more a culmination of the journey with Taggy winning Rupert than there was with Stevie and Z. Like, do you feel like it was more of a sense of closure and success for the book because a satisfaction, I suppose, factor with their romance than you did with, or was Z and Stevie's your preferred ending?
I think
warning, they obviously get together. I think that's quite clear.
I think with Jilly Cooper, I had never read the book and so I didn't have a clue that was where it was going to end up, really, because it was it's a forbidden love. There's a big age difference.
There's an age difference, which
he's got a reputation. You know, he is that bad boy. So it wasn't obvious from the beginning that she would end up with him because it was the harder choice almost to go for this person. Whereas reading Mile High, you know that almost 2 chapters in, okay, these are our 2 main characters. They will live happily ever after.
And if they didn't, what would your reaction be?
I would be surprised, and I'd be like, oh, well, that was a waste of time. I was after like a quick romance, you know. I was after.
And do you think people just want that quick romance? They just want love. They want to read about love.
Yeah, and I think that they just want that quick hit of, okay, I fancy just reading a romance and having a few hours escapism. It's a bit like, I don't know, watching a Jane Austen adaptation on the telly, or reading Jane Austen. You know that
or Wuthering Heights, which everyone's suddenly started reading again.
You know that after a few minutes in, okay, these are the 2 main characters. We're going to end up happily ever after. Yes, there's a journey, and you sometimes don't know all the twists and turns, but ultimately, it's Jane Austen ultimate love story as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was probably the first blueprint of misunderstanding and miscommunication and people not understanding. And even Mr. Darcy probably was the first bad boy because people assumed he was rude and arrogant and unlovable, and he believed it himself. And then he gets his corners chipped off him, which is what happens to Rupert. Rupert basically gets a kicking, and he needs a good kicking. From a lot of different people when it realizes that actually.
Writing from the point of view, what's the hardest thing to get right in a Bonkbuster? Plot, pace, or chemistry?
Chemistry. That is the hardest thing to get right. You think you're writing really witty dialogue and you think that, oh, that's really funny. You start laughing to yourself like, oh, that's really sexy. That's so cool. And you read it back about 2 days later like, that's just so not sexy and it's so not cool. I think our author here with Mile High is actually very good at dialogue. I think the witty repartee between the two is really enjoyable. I remember highlighting a few lines where I thought, actually, you've got some good chemistry
and
here.
I think that was their initial attraction, actually, when she bites back when they first meet on the plane.
Yes.
And that's what he's
and that's
like,
what keeps you reading.
I've never had anybody be so
cocky.
Rude or cocky.
But that being said, plot you don't necessarily need so much. I think we've evidenced it's not a particularly complex plot with Mile High. It is with Rivals, but that's because it's fundamentally also telling the story about the two franchises. But pacing, I think they both have moments where they lose their pacing.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I found it quite hard. I read the first book, Riders, and I was just overcome by, okay, this is a slow burn.
It is, yeah.
It's of its time. It's of its time. There's the detail, so the plot, the pace, wow.
But what keeps you reading is the chemistry, the tension between the two. You want to know who's going to get with who and who's going to screw over whoever. And with Mile High, you want to know what do they have to overcome to get together, and you do want to flick to the horny bits as well, which you know. But the key with these is to almost not flick to the end, because I wonder if people do, like they just want to just know if they get together or not.
I don't. The sex scenes are not necessarily what pulls it for me. Good. It's okay, you know, but it's also a little bit laughable because wow, they've been going for like 24 hours, and it's like
the gratification bit is a little bit again unrealistic.
Like, okay, go you. Maybe it's the athlete in them. I don't know, but realism there is escaped. That's gone out of the window. So I don't know. Maybe some people do just jump to the sexy bits,
or they just literally just scannery, just going straight through, just getting. They just want that the conversations, the repartee, the wittiness.
But I think that's what film is for.
Though I would say again, keep saying in Mile High, keep saying, "Oh, this is witty," and then you're being told it's meant to be witty. When actually, like the reader knows this, they can tell that it's witty. This is witticisms. They don't need to be told, "Oh, he's so." We love our banter. We kind of get it. Yeah. But that's obviously a different style in writing. I had a couple of questions for you. Do you think if a book like Rivals came out now, it would be popular, i.e. this sort of scale, and so diving into society at the moment, the nouveau riche and the politics, or do you think there wouldn't be much of an appetite for it? Would you want to read something like that?
I think that it would be incredibly hard to write something like that. So I look forward to Sarah, you writing that, and I'll read it.
But I remember wanting to be able to write like this actually when I was 16. I really wanted to be an author like Jilly Cooper.
I think our world is so very changed. It's so very different. I think there's so much fame and celebrity has changed. I think politics has changed. Our politicians
just don't want to read about it.
I was going to say it's too real. It isn't an escapism.
Or maybe it's because we know too much. Because like news nowadays, we know everything about everything. Yeah. While back in the 80s, you just didn't know what the upper class were up to.
No, absolutely. It wasn't publicised. They were able to keep
their
dirty laundry,
Instagram.
Dirty laundry hidden, and it wasn't publicised. You know, Rupert at one point does get the paparazzi go after him.
Yes. And paparazzi is a thing in both, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, it does. So that's how Stevie and Z's relationship is outed towards the end, because they're waiting outside his house.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a common theme. I just think that it's, for me, reading is about escapism. I don't necessarily want to read about what's happening in the world today, because
what's going on behind number 10.
Yeah, we always kind of think, oh, actually, that's pretty awful. I'd rather not talk about politics right now, or what the world is being blown up and things like that.
So do you read a lot of this genre? Or do you mix it up with other stuff?
I mix it up every now and then. It's kind of, it's just an easy read. It's very, you dip into it and then all of a sudden you've read 3 of a series or something.
And do you come back to them because you know it's going to be, the genre is going to be just like soothe your brain, or do you read them on holiday, or what's the driver?
No particular time, but the driver for me is perhaps I haven't read in a while, I need to get back into reading, and it just almost kind of switches my brain back on, oh, okay, I can read that in a couple of hours, and then go, oh, that's absolute trash, maybe, or a speed read or whatever, and then you think, oh, actually, I need something now juicy and good, and to really get my teeth into.
So after this, are you planning on reading something quite complex?
Yeah, we definitely have to go a little bit higher up market and read something. Yeah, what about you? How do you feel reading this? And then do you read much of it?
Not well, I do, but I read more the romantasy. So Sarah J. Maas, Holly Black, Cassandra Clare, because I write fantasy.
And Rebecca Yarros.
Yeah, absolutely. We should do a one on Rebecca Yarros's books, because her climb to fame with
Third Wing,
with the Fourth Wing series, close, has been it's been huge how much people have bought into her stuff, and it is a whole conversation there. So I do, and the writing style and the bad boy turns good, and the forces that pull them apart and they come back together regardless are the same in romantasy as they are in romantic novels. But you do get more of the world building that you get from a Rivals type book.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why I like it. But I do think that we should try something like Hamnet next, because we talked before about books to film. Now Hamnet is a complete pivot, because it's quite a sad story.
I haven't read it.
Okay,
and I haven't seen the film.
Right, so I won't say any more. You're probably going to beat you around the head after reading it, because it pulls at your heart. But we could counter that with something.
This is a homework one, isn't
it? This is a homework one, but we can counter it with another. You suggested this last time, which was the book that.
The Housemaid.
Yeah, so that's then been turned into film.
Okay, so do a comparison between.
Well, they're very different, but how they're brought to life in film might be quite fun. Yeah. All right, I'm going to do a quick fire round with you, because I think this will be fun. All right, okay. For the reader, would you go Rupert Campbell Black or modern hockey heartthrob, i.e. Z? Who would be your choice? Rupert, good. Okay. Slow burn or instant gratification spice?
Can I have both?
You can have both. We'll give you both. All right. Chaos, i.e. Rivals and all that, or communication, which is a big theme in Mile High.
I would probably go communication.
Escapism or realism?
Oh, probably realism. Yeah. Fair. Okay, you then. What's
mine? Okay, so Rupert Campbell Black, because obviously it just has to be Rupert.
We're 80s girls. We are.
We are. We were born of this genre. We were meant to choose Rupert. Though I do prefer him blonde. They've made him brunette in
do you? I've never been a blonde.
Oh yeah, never prefer blonde. I'd go in. Yeah, probably go both. Though probably slow burn. I like to see. I'm not necessarily all about the big sex scenes. I'm like the will they, won't they. I think when they finally get there. I'll go chaos, because I do like the big world that is Rivals, and I would probably say more realism for love stories.
Yes.
But I was going to ask you one last question before we wrap, and that is around how well Mile High deals with mental health issues.
Oh yeah,
because that I think is something that you wanted to bring to the table, and it's important.
And it's something that has become more relevant and more talked about in the last sort of last 15, 20 years, but it's people are very aware of it nowadays, and it's one of the themes that's in the Mile High, where Stevie does struggle with her mental health, as far as her relationship with her mother, her relationship with herself and her body, her own insecurities,
like dysmorphia.
Z has a family situation with his father that he struggled with, and he has panic attacks, and he takes himself
and he has
off.
almost like anger management issues as well.
Yeah,
and he's actually in therapy too.
Yeah, and his character is in therapy, and he has a charity that helps other people deal with mental health issues. So that was very nice. It's very almost tick boxy, must I say, in that they're covering off of a
lot of issues there.
You know, there's Stevie's mental health, Z's body situations, but you don't get that with Jilly Cooper.
No, she doesn't touch on that really.
I think it's because it's of its time.
Yeah,
it wasn't so. It's not that people didn't suffer, because we know that Maud suffers.
Oh yeah,
you know, Maud is a character that you could have a whole spin-off.
She could have a whole book on her own. Yeah,
I found her really difficult, like the way she treats her children.
Yeah,
her relationship with her husband. But she's fascinating. Yeah. You can tell that she is struggling with her mental health
and alcoholism, I think.
Absolutely.
As well. Yeah.
And even what's the Cameron?
Yes, Cameron Cook. Yeah,
Cameron Cook. She's a great character that has obviously got some issues as well. And today, if you were writing that character, you would elaborate that, and you would pull that out.
Explore it.
Yeah. So I think that the author of Mile High did a really good job in covering empowering people, bringing up those subjects. They are relevant. They are. Everybody suffers at some point, I'm sure, or knows somebody that has. So she's very good. She has ticked that one off completely.
So, to summarise, we're going to suggest to everybody that they do read Mile High by Liz Tomford.
I'd say it's a quick read. I'd say it's enjoyable. It's quite light-hearted. It's not going to change the world.
And if you haven't read Rivals and you are watching the TV series, I would suggest downloading it for like a holiday when you've got 2 whole weeks.
I was going to say, would you recommend reading that?
Oh, I would, and it is a favourite. As you can see, it's a battered copy here. You have to read it with a pinch of salt. It is of its time, and if you can put that aside and get what you need with regards to body confidence from books like Miles High, then you'll have a great time reading that. But so. Hamnet next, and The Housemaid. They're completely different books, by the way. So this should be quite a fun session.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
If you would like to follow, share, and be part of our next podcast, please do so.
Yeah, and any suggestions would be very welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
What should we say?
So you can sort of just go, hi and welcome to episode 2 of Author and Reader. And today we are talking about Bonkbusters, i.e. your spicy novels. And Danny has picked 2, so yeah.
Oh yeah, so I've picked
Should we start from the beginning?
Yeah.
That was me just
That's
like
good,
riffing.
That's fine.
Right, we'll do that again. Okay. Right, so we clap. 1, 2, 3.